Hi everybody, welcome to Sunday IndyCar. My name's Gordon Ross and we're nearing the end of July now, and not long before, not long before Brexit, I suppose. We've got about another 96, something like that, days to go before Brexit happens. But a lot of things are happening, and it's kind of hard to fit them all in today. So I'm going to give you 4 items of news today, relatively quickly. The first one, and I think the most obvious one, was the success of the Campbeltown Independence March on Saturday. Somewhere in the region of 3,000 to 4,000 people turned up at Campbeltown on Saturday to march for independence. The photographs and the live streams of the day show a massively successful march. A very large march, incidentally, for such a small venue. Having attended the rallies in Caernarfon myself personally over the years, I know what it's like when you try to put a large march through a small venue like that, small town. But the nice thing about small town marches is that everybody comes out to watch and everybody takes part, and there is a carnival atmosphere, and that is exactly what happened in Campbeltown. Despite the weather being a bit damp, thousands of people turned up on the day. Even the Sir Albert pipes and drums, who couldn't make it all the way across in large numbers, still managed to send about half a dozen of their number to lead the march. So despite all of the difficulties in the past few days with the organisation of this march, it's been a success. And I think that is down to the hundreds of people who made it happen, all those people working behind the scenes, all those who donned the yellow vests to steward the event and to make sure it passed off peacefully. Now, at the same time as this march was happening in sort of sleepy Campbeltown, there was an even larger march, but not in Scotland. This time the march was in Wales, and on the same day, at the same time as the Campbeltown march, there was a Welsh Yes march at Caernarfon, where 8,000 people, estimated 8,000 people, marched through the streets of Caernarfon, one of Wales's most iconic historic towns and counties, to basically to say the same thing, that Wales wants independence. Caernarfon is one of 3 towns now which has actually come out in favour of independence. 3 town councils have now declared for Welsh independence. So the mood in the country, if you want to call the United Kingdom a country, but the mood in the Celtic nations is that they're not going to stick around for Brexit. The Welsh, I think, know that they made a mistake in voting very tiny, in a tiny minority, for leaving the European Union, and they're starting to wake up as well now. So at the same time as Scotland is marching for independence, so is Wales. That also leads us to Northern Ireland and the Irish Republic and what's happening there. The talk at the moment from Boris Johnson is abolishing the backstop. Now, the backstop is there to protect the Good Friday Agreement. The Good Friday Agreement is an international peace treaty signed by both the European Union, the Irish government and the UK government, and brokered, incidentally, by America. And if I remember correctly, it was Bill Clinton and John Major who started the ball rolling. So a lot of things are at stake in Northern Ireland, not least is the peace of the island, and everyone in Ireland on both sides of the divide, if you want to call the border that, are worried about the idea of the backstop being abolished in this cavalier fashion. What would happen if they abolished this or refused to implement the backstop? The UK would effectively be tearing up a peace treaty, a treaty which has maintained peace in Ireland for the last 20 odd years, something which the young people of Ireland and the generation which came after the peace accord was signed have now got used to. They've got used to peace. Okay, Northern Ireland, we know, is not a perfect place. It is heavily subsidised at the moment in order to keep it going by the British government. It suffers strategically from lack of investment and lack of industries, and so people in Northern Ireland are always struggling to try and make ends meet. In the Republic, there's a feeling that the push for reunification is becoming more tangible along the border. Even the people in Northern Ireland themselves are beginning to see the possibility of the troubles returning and the violence returning and a hard border being erected again. And those of you who remember the troubles and how they started will know that the flashpoint for the Northern Irish troubles, if you want to call a virtual civil war troubles, was this border and all the checkpoints and the British Army machine gun nests and towers and helicopters and all the rest of it. That cannot be allowed to happen again. Now, interestingly, if the British government chooses to rip up this treaty, to tear up the Good Friday Agreement, and refuse to implement the backstop, remember, the backstop only comes into effect if both the British government and the European Union cannot come up with a way of keeping the border open. Now, you'd think that the British government and the European Union, even if they don't have an agreement, would at least do that. And this is a strong, what would you say, a strong deterrent to the British government to tear it up. It's also a strong impulse to do something positive to fix the problem. But Boris Johnson is determined to abolish it. He claims that he is going to get a wonderful deal from Donald Trump. Donald Trump says they're going to do 5 times the amount of business with the UK, 5 times the amount of business that we're currently doing with the United States is not even half of what we are doing with the European Union. So let's keep that in context for a moment. And the other thing is that if the United Kingdom were to unilaterally tear up the Good Friday Agreement or the Belfast Agreement, whatever you want to call it, if they tear that up after Brexit, then the American, and I'm trying to remember, the American Congress would have to okay a trade deal with Britain, and they are very unlikely to do that. Congress is very against the idea of the backstop being abolished, and if Britain did that, then they would definitely not get a trade deal. Despite what Donald Trump says he wants to do, Congress would stop it from happening. So a lot of things that we're being told will happen can't happen. And the news about the backstop is bluster. Boris Johnson continues to say that he's going to go for a no deal if the European Union won't abolish it. We know the European Union can't abolish it because nobody wants a return to violence in Ireland and along the border, and nobody will countenance that, least of all the people in Ireland themselves. It's a very dangerous thing for an English Prime Minister to decide to throw Northern Ireland under the bus, to throw, in fact, the whole island of Ireland under the bus and submerge it back into yet another vicious civil war caused by the continuing British occupation of the 6 counties in the north. Okay, so that is all ongoing at the moment. In the meantime, Boris Johnson visited Manchester yesterday, and although you won't see it on the BBC or ITV News, on his way into the venue he was pelted with rotten eggs, with fruit, and at one stage even a beach ball bounced off him as he was being escorted quickly, almost frog-marched into the building by 3 big burly policemen trying to protect him from the hail of flying fruit, vegetables and eggs which was coming from all directions. The Manchester people clearly did not welcome Boris Johnson's presence one bit, despite what he was saying about building a railway line. A railway line is not the cure for the north of England's problems. A change of government is obviously needed there. So that was about it. Nicola Sturgeon is at the moment, or was in Shetland, helping to launch the campaign for a by-election there, where I think Tavish Scott recently retired, the Lib Dem, and the SNP has put up a young candidate who's an oil worker. I think this is a good choice of candidate. Politically speaking, he's young, he has a family, he's local, he is the son of a local person as well, and he has good ties to Shetland and an understanding of the oil industry. And the oil industry at the moment has not said very much about the idea of Brexit, and perhaps they think it doesn't actually affect them in any way, but everything to do with Brexit will affect the oil industry in every way. And having an SNP MSP there, I'm trying to remember if it's an MP or an MSP they're electing. I'll correct myself later on that. But having a representative from the oil industry would be good. Certainly having a local man with a young family. He's a man who knows what Shetland needs and what the island is about, and I think would make an excellent candidate. So Nicola's up there helping to get that campaign underway. Now, interestingly, at the same time, Prince Charles was supposed to be visiting Shetland as well on the same day to visit. Now, if it's Prince Charles, sorry, it's almost definitely to do with the environment. So I believe he was coming up to visit local environmental groups on Shetland to see the work that they're doing. All very commendable, incidentally. Nothing wrong with Prince Charles doing that, and I think most people would have welcomed him. The problem was it clashed with Nicola's visit. And what do you know? Prince Charles's plane developed a technical fault and he couldn't make it. So make of that what you will, but it looks to me like Prince Charles's visit was cancelled because of the presence of the leader of the Scottish Parliament, the leader of the Scottish Government, being in the same place at the same time as Prince Charles, the future King of the United Kingdom. So that's basically the news for the moment. But just to kind of bring you up to speed on where everything is, we're having still massive marches and turnouts, even in small venues in Scotland, mustering 4,000 people in Campbeltown, which is probably, I mean, it's barely a town, it's just big enough to be a town. And Campbeltown historically was a distillery town. There were distilleries all around there now. What's left of them, you ask? Not so much anymore. So Campbeltown, a quiet place, but not forgotten, and definitely not forgotten in the independence campaign. In Wales, Caernarfon, like 2 other towns in Wales, declaring now for independence. How many more in Wales are going to be seeing these marches and wondering if this vote to leave the European Union was not the wrong thing to do? I think that the impetus in Wales is building now for an indie ref for Wales as well. Even the Labour leader of the Welsh Parliament, Welsh Assembly, was saying that he thinks perhaps independence is the only answer for Wales. Anyway, those are the main points today. Boris Johnson pelted with fruit by his own electorate up in Manchester. Obviously, they hate him up there just as much as we do. So good luck to people of Manchester. And Nicola Sturgeon, as popular as ever in visiting Shetland, and Prince Charles having to cancel his visit because of engine trouble apparently, because it clashed with Nicola's. Anyway, those are the main points of the news today. Have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you all on Monday, so tomorrow. Bye for now.